Okay, the file which you see here, it is called Superstore dataset, sample Superstore dataset, very famous one. So this one you can find, you can actually you can see in many places, like for example on Kaggle, on Tableau, or on many other websites as well. Now, when it comes to Superstore dataset, there is a longer version and a shorter version. The one which you are seeing right now is a shorter version, you can say. So what we are going to do with this is, like yesterday I mentioned, right? We are going to talk about pivot tables. So we are going to talk exactly about the pivot tables. Now, one thing which I want to note even before I start is you have to understand about the file formats. So whenever you are dealing with any kind of files, okay. So here when you talk about Excel, so generally whenever some file opens with Excel, we think that that is an Excel file, but that's not the case. So you have something called CSV, then you have Excel, XLS, XLSX. So the difference between the X version and the non-X version is this is an older Excel file. This is the older Excel version, you can say. This is the newer Excel version. And CSV is something which is called comma separated values. So you can open this file either in Notepad or Excel or using any other tool as well. However, what you have to remember here is whenever you are dealing with CSV files. So for example, the one which I have given you is a CSV file. Let's say if you do some customization, let's say you added some colors, you did some pivot table, everything you have done, and then you click save and then you close the file. And when you open the file next time, nothing will be saved because CSV has certain limitations. So even if you do everything, all the changes on CSV directly on Excel, and then once you close it, you might assume that all the changes will be saved, but that is not the case. So that is one of the mistakes which is made by a lot of beginners. So whenever you are going to make any changes in Excel, any analysis you want to do, always convert it into this format, Excel SX. So this is the format which is used by all the modern Excel workbooks. And one more thing which you have to keep in mind is generally when you extract data. So let's say if you are extracting data from SAP or some ERP system, or generally from any kind of legacy systems. Like for example, let's say if you are working in a company, so obviously they'll have a lot of different systems like cubes, SQL Server, a lot of these systems will be there. So generally when you extract Excel file, you don't get Excel in this format, in newer version of Excel. The reason being, for compatibility reasons, typically when you download Excel, when you extract the data into Excel file, typically you can either download it from CSV or XLS. So the older version of Excel will have certain limitations. Some of the new features, if they are there, you may not or may not be able to use them. So the first thing you should always do whenever you are dealing with Excel files is first check what is the format. So how do you check the format? Very simple. So go to the file, go to the properties. Here you will be able to see the extension. So here you will have the extension here. So another way to see is here you have the file type. So if you see the file type, here it is written Microsoft Excel, comma separated values file. So you just see the extension first. Once you know the extension, then you start working. What I always generally recommend is whether it is in CSV or XLS, first you convert it into the modern Excel format. So how do you convert the file? Very simple. So we have the Superstore data, go to file, go to save and go to a particular path. And here, when you say save as, here you have all the options, how you want to save it. Now, generally, when you use macros or VBA, you have to save it as macro enabled. But generally, what happens is macro is something which is kind of legacy. So Microsoft no longer supports VBA officially. Only security updates and minor updates they're pushing. So generally in organizations, it is not, it is not generally recommended from security perspective to use macro enabled books, because macro enabled workbook, this one. So this is a template file. This is the workbook file. So it is not recommended to save in macro enabled workbook. The reason being macros are considered to be malicious and a small code can wipe out everything on your system. So generally scripting languages and all these things are restricted in most of the organizations. And that is one of the reasons why people use macro at their local level, like at their desk level, but on a center level, no IT guys, I mean, no security teams actually allow you to use VBA because they consider it to be potentially dangerous. So here you have all the format, different formats. So you have CSV, two types of formats are there, one for Mac and one for Microsoft, like Windows. Then you have the PDF. Let's say if you want to save something in PDF, you have the PDF as well. Here you have the PDF, and you have other formats as well. But the most common format which you will come across is either Excel workbook or Excel 97 2003 workbook. So this one will have XLS. Excel workbook will have XLS. Last you will have the extra X. So you save this as Excel workbook and click save. Then it will be saved automatically. Now, once you save it, then whatever changes you make in your file will get reflected. You can save them and then reopen the file. It will work like normal Excel workbook. But CSV never make any changes. Even if you make changes, that's of no use. So that is about the file format structure with respect to Excel. So once you do it on your end, then I'll continue. Okay, so this is for general awareness or general knowledge, you can say. I want to ask you guys a question. Please try to answer it. So the question is, which is the most popular programming language in the world? What do you think? Which is the most popular programming language in the world?
C plus.
Okay.
VB.
Okay,
Visual Basic.
SQL, Python, Java, some are saying .NET, C++. Okay, Visual Basic. Okay, what about others? Yeah. Okay, again Visual Basic. Okay, Java. Okay, fine. So I am ready to give you all of you guys a surprise. So none of the answers are correct. So if I give the answer, some of you may disagree with me. So that's why what I will do is I will just go and I will give you one tweet which is related to this one. So there is one function called Lambda function, which was introduced by Microsoft. Okay, so they have introduced this function, I think around 1.5 years back. So let me just go and refer to that one. Let me Microsoft Twitter. So here I will show you. So if you see, this is a tweet made by Satya Nadella, and you can see what he wrote. Excel formulas, the world's most popular programming language in the world, is Turing complete. Go check it out. So if I go and check this article out, so this is from Microsoft website. As you can see, this is saying Microsoft.com. It is a research blog. Okay. And here, if you see here, what is written? Excel formulas are written by an order of magnitude by more users than C, C++, C Sharp, Java, and Python programmers in the world combined. So even if you combine all the programmers, there are more people who are writing Excel formulas. So in other words, the most popular language is Excel formulas. So it has more number of users, I won't say users, developers compared to any other programming language. So even if you combine all the programming languages together, half of it will be occupied only by Excel people, like whoever are writing these formulas. So it is the most widely used programming language. If you see, they have emphasized on the word programming language. Now, I'm not saying this. This is officially published by Microsoft themselves around couple of years back. So the point is, at the end of the day, we don't consider Excel to be a programming language. We generally think, whenever I ask this question, like 99% of the people will say either it is Python or Java or C++. These are the three answers which I generally receive. But we don't see Excel as a programming language at all. But the truth is, even Excel is considered to be a programming language. So if you know Excel, you are already a programmer, technically speaking. So once when I asked this question, and when I said Excel is the most popular programming, Excel functions are most popular programming language. So there were a lot of people who said, no, Excel cannot be considered as programming language, etc. So whenever someone disagrees, I give them link to this particular blog, which is published by Microsoft, and then people don't say anything. So that is the reason why I always show this particular paragraph. So the reason why I'm showing this, because Excel is something which should not be taken for granted. So generally people take Excel for granted. People will think that, oh, I know Excel. But the truth is, it is the most important and the most popular programming language. And there is a lot of nuances to Excel, right? So the Excel which you might have used 10 years back is completely different from the Excel which we are using right now. So lot of new things have got introduced, and every single month Microsoft is pushing updates to Excel. Every 2-3 months, some major thing you will be able to see. And over the next 2-3 years, a lot of things are going to change in Excel as well. And it is going to be very, very robust software package, you can say. For example, recently you might have seen there is a new feature which got launched, which is Copilot. So once Copilot comes, it will make Excel even more powerful. I mean, I'm talking about release to the general public. Right now, it is still in beta version, but once it comes to general public, it will become very powerful. So I'll give you a small example of how much powerful Excel is. So generally, when you talk about something like this is called range. Yesterday only we discussed. So first, what should I do? I should select my range, go to insert, and make it into a table. And I generally don't like this. I want it to be plain. So I just went here and changed the color. Now I want to have the summary. So here I have sales. Here I have sales, quantity. I just want to have the summary of this. So in other words, what I want to know here is what are the total sales and what is the total quantity of different shipping modes. So for example, I have 4 shipping modes here. First class, same day, second class, standard class. I just want to know what is the total sales and quantity of each shipping mode. So if I want a summary of this, one way to do it is, yes, I can go with a formula. But again, I want a summary in a single place. So for those of you who are new in Excel, there is a feature called pivot table. Now, pivot table is different from table. Yesterday, what we discussed was table. I selected a range, then I converted to a table by going here and saying this. And here you have table design. A new tab called table design came. Now, what pivot table will do is, what pivot will do is, it will actually try to help you to summarize whatever information is there. When you convert something to a table, all it changes is the data type, whichever is there. So it just adds this table design and bunch of new features come into picture. But if you want to summarize this entire thing in whichever way you want, So you have to first, I always recommend people to convert a range into a table so that it will become dynamic. The second thing is, once you go to insert, there is an option for pivot table. Now, depending on the version you are using, the option will be different. Some of you may not have a drop down like this. Some of you may have only a button called pivot table without any down arrow like this, without any options. For some of you, this option will be there. So it depends on which version of Excel you're using. So for majority of the people, there won't be any kind of drop down kind of thing. You'll only have pivot table. So the shortcut for that is Alt and V. So you have to, you cannot directly click all three at once. So if you want to do shortcut, first you long press Alt, then some alphabets will appear. Then you say N. So N will take you to insert, then go to V, and then you have to say T. For those of you who don't have the drop down, just Alt and V is fine, right? N for Nagaland, V for Varanasi. So Alt and V is fine. But those of you who are using this version of Excel, again, you need to use a third key, which is T for table. So Alt. So again, I'll show you how to use shortcuts on Excel. Okay. First, you long press Alt. Long press in the sense for 2-3 seconds. Then some alphabets will appear on your screen like this. Then N. N will take you to insert. Then V. V will take you to pivot. For some of you, that is enough. If you have a drop down, then you have to click on T. So that will take you to the pivot table. So here it is asking, what is that? Select the table or a range. So already we converted to a table. By default, the table name will be table 1. And I want this to be in a new worksheet, and I'll click OK. Then my pivot table is ready to be built. So once you do this from your end, please let me know. So first convert your range into a table. After you convert it, then you go to insert and select pivot table. Okay. Now, what is a pivot table and how does it help you? Generally, what happens is when we want to summarize, we go with this pivot table option. And when you go to pivot table option on the right side, you will find something like this. Now, for some of you, there could be a different view altogether. But one thing is this one will be same for all of you. So it will say pivot table, something it should say in a new page when you insert it. Now, for some of you, this may not be visible on the right side. So if something is not visible, what you have to go is you have to go to pivot table analyze, and here you have an option to hide and show whatever are there on the pivot table fields. So for example, let's say your field list is not there. If you click on it, it will be visible. Now, similarly here also you'll have layouts, different types of layouts. For some of you, the layout will be like this. For some of you, it will be like this. For some of you, it may be like this. So it depends on the layout options you are choosing. So I generally prefer this layout so that I can easily see what all are there. It's again a preference. You go to gears icon and you can customize it in whatever way you want. And what you have to keep in mind here is, since I want shipping mode, I need to know the terminology. So yesterday only I was telling, right? What is a row, what is a column, and then you need to know what are filters and values, which is very easy to understand. I'll just let you know. So what are rows? First of all, many people are confused between rows and columns. So these are rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All these are called rows. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, these are all columns. So columns will always go from left to right. Rows will always go from top to bottom. So just remember the direction, right? So the more rows you add, the data will go more down, right? From top to down. Similarly, the more columns you add, your table will become wider. So it'll go to the right side. So that is something you have to remember. So when you put something in rows, it will show you something from top to bottom. So for example, if I put shipping mode in my rows, so what is happening from top to bottom, it has given me all the shipping modes. Now, in case if I put it in columns, it will give me from left to right. So it is just the direction in which your data is displayed. This is rows, this is columns. So I'll put it in rows. Now in columns, what I want, so rows is completed. So 4 rows are given. Now I want in columns, I want to know my the sales and quantity. Now let's say if I put my cursor somewhere, everything disappears. Again, if I go back, this will appear because all these cells are out of pivot range, but these cells are within the range of pivot. So I'll select this one and then I will say sales and I'll put it here. Similarly, quantity, I'll put it here. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind here is whenever you have any values, any numbers will always go here in the values. So you have this symbol, right? Summation. All these values, whichever you have profit, quantity, cost, like standard deviation, sum, variance, whatever value you have, everything, all the numerical values will go here. Rows and columns is only for the categorical ones. Now let me remove this one. You see this values got disappeared. The minute I add quantity, the values is there. Now this is something which comes automatically. So whenever you have more than one value, more than one value field, you will automatically get the values in column. So basically what it is saying is your column is consisting of some values. So by default it will bring. That is the behavior of Excel basically. Now let's say you want to add some filter. Now let's say you want to see only for one particular country. Then what you can do, I will say filter. In filter I'm putting country. There is only US. Now let's go with state. So let's say I want to add another filter which is state. Now here I will go and let's say I want to see for California. I'll select California and I can also do multi-select. Maybe I'll select California and probably Arizona and I'll click OK. Now my filter is applied and here you can see a symbol that filter is applied and it is only showing me the values related to that. So if you have to summarize your data, you don't have to use any formulas. Pivot table will take care of that. For those of you who are not new to Excel, I think you will be familiar with this. But for those who are new, this is something which will be handy. So if someone asks you to summarize the data, you go with pivot table. So you can also do it from your end. So if you want to know pivot tables on a very basic level, you just have to know these 4. Where to put what to use, what to put in filters, what to put in rows, what to put in columns, and what to put in values. That's it. Okay, so here sometimes what happens is you have weird values like this, like you'll have a lot of decimal values. Let's say you want to correct it, you don't want any decimal values, or you want to change the format. So there are a couple of ways. One way is you'll go to values, value field settings, and here you will say show values as, sorry, here you will have summarize values by default, and here you have number format. You click on number format, go to number, and you can use a thousand separator and click OK. If you don't want decimals, put it 0 and click OK. And click OK. Automatically the format gets changed. I'll repeat again. Let's say if you don't want decimals, or if you want to put commas for your values, there are a couple of ways. One way is directly you can select, and here you can put a comma like this. That is one way. The second way is you go here, go to value field settings. So in the values, click any one of them, go to value field settings, and here you will have two tabs, ignore them. Go to number format, go to number, put 0 decimals, reduce it to 0, put 1000 separator, click OK. Click OK again. So you'll be able to get the sales as well as the quantity. Fine. Okay. So that's how you'll change the format. Now let us talk about the new features of Excel. Now to create this one, to create this particular table, so we have gone through a lot of things, right? So first we converted that into a table, then into a pivot table, then we dragged and dropped everything. So generally, if you think about it, having a summarized version like this is okay, but generally what users expect is this has to be made into a chart. So to create a chart, you select these ones. So here you have row labels. You can rename it as shipping class. Then here you can say this is sales. So sales, now it says sales is already there, one of the fields on the right side. So you can say sales space or sales dot something you can put to prevent that. And now I'll select this one, and then I'll go to insert, and then I'll insert a pie chart like this. So a pie chart has come. So just to get to this particular step, just to get this pie chart which is there, of course you can customize it. Let's not go into that mode, into customization and all. That I'll show you in the next class where we'll talk about charts. So just to create a chart like this where you get a summarized view, we followed n number of steps. But in latest version of Excel, you don't need to follow any of that. So let me show you how it works. Now this is only available in Office 365. So if you are using Office 2021 or Office 2019, generally when you purchase a laptop, they'll give you either 2021 version or 2019 version. Those Excel versions will not have it because whatever feature I'm about to show you will require an internet connection, and that requires Office 365. So this is a functionality which has its own limitations, but again, this is just a big leap forward, I would say, in terms of artificial intelligence in Excel in action. So on the top, you might be seeing something called analyze data. So if I click on analyze data, what Excel will do is it will try to analyze all your data. Now, let me ask a question. Show me total sales by ship mode in a donut chart. So it has automatically given a donut chart. So I asked it, show me total sales by ship mode in a donut chart. So three inputs I have given. One is I want in a donut chart, I want to take shipping mode and I want to see the sales. And I'll say insert pivot chart over. My pivot automatically got established and everything I'm able to see. Now I want to know data only related to California. I will say California state. So it is for California. And I will say for California and Arizona state. So it is given for California and Arizona. I'll insert pivot. So if I go back 492970, here also 492, okay, 969. If you just put it in decimals, if you reduce the decimals, it is the same value which it is giving 4492970. So what you are seeing here is artificial intelligence, not artificial intelligence, NLP, natural language processing. You are asking something in human language, and Excel is automatically giving you something which is ready made. So whatever I showed you, we followed number of steps to get here. But if you see here, it has already given everything just by speaking in the language, which is like English, layman English, you can say. And then automatically it has given you all the pivot table, chart, everything ready made. All you need to do is copy it and put it in your report. That's it. Your job is done. So what you have to understand here from this example is one of the questions which people have regarding Excel or any other tool is once this AI comes into picture, what will happen to the existing skill set which people have? That is the question which many people have. What you have to keep in mind is even if you want to use something like this, like analyze data, first of all, you should know how to represent the data, what data you have in the first place. Even to ask questions also, you need to know what questions to ask. So for example, let's say if you take this data set to, let's say someone studying in 10th class, maybe that person may not be able to understand what question to ask. But at least if you ask a college student, just by looking at the data set, maybe he'll be able to say, okay, I want to see total sales, something he'll try. Now the same thing, if you show this to a working professional, let's say someone with 5 to 10 years of experience, the level of questions which they ask will be way more mature compared to someone who is like a school kid or maybe a college kid, right? So even though it is true that things are getting automated, but at the end of the day, all these services work on prompts. Even ChatGPT works on a prompt. So until you ask the right question, you will not get the right answer, right? Even Google works on prompt. If you want to get a solution on Google, the right solution, you have to ask the right question. So if you don't know which question to ask, Google also cannot give you the answer. Now here also that's the same case. You may ask random questions and then you can get all the information which you need. But you should also get the right answers which are related to whatever work you are doing. So is it serving any purpose? For example, we created this pie chart. So what we are talking about shipping mode in California and Arizona. So if you think from business perspective, this is something which will help the logistics team, because who will handle the shipping mode, all these other things, supply chain or logistics department. So they are the ones who will be benefited from something like this. And that too are handling California and Arizona, strictly speaking, these particular two regions. So you have to understand that business perspective as well, little bit. Otherwise, even though you may have wonderful tools like this, analyze data or Q&A in Power BI and all of that, at the end of the day, you may not be able to take full advantage of it, right? So these features, the skill which you need to have to use these features is you need to know how to ask the right questions. Always remember, giving the right answers is easy because you already have a question in front of you. And with the help of Google, with the help of some help, maybe from a guide, mentor, or someone, you can give the right answer. But to generate a question, that is more difficult. So many people think giving an answer is easy, but trust me, giving answer is easy because you know what is the question. But when you do not even know what question to ask, then you'll only be able to frame the right questions when you have a business mindset. So let me give you a typical example of this. Now imagine you're working in a company and you have an opportunity to meet the CEO of the company, right? Let's say you are working in a corporate. So you have an opportunity to meet the CEO of the company.
Hello. Hello.
Okay, I just got reconnected. Sorry about that. Yeah. So I'll give you one typical example. So I told you, right? Asking questions is more difficult. Am I audible?
Yes, not audible. Yes.
Okay. So just now I was telling, right? Asking questions is more difficult than answering the questions. So I'll give you a small scenario just to tell you how difficult it is. Okay. Imagine you got a chance to interview the CEO of Microsoft. Let's say you got an opportunity to interview Satya Nadella for a period of 60 minutes. And you are the one who have to host him and you have to ask him questions. Now, let's say you have to ask 3 questions which can impress him. What kind of questions you can ask to a person like Satya Nadella? Like 3 questions which are business oriented. Now, if I give an assignment like that, it will be very, very difficult because you're talking to a CEO of a company and you have to ask questions which are relevant. So if you want to ask those 3 questions, which are very important, you have to go back and do all the research. You have to find out, first of all, who is Satya Nadella? What is he? When did he become CEO? What is the history of Microsoft? What is he heading right now? What are his successes, failures? Once you study everything, then only you'll be able to ask the right questions. Without knowing the history or the background, you'll never be able to ask the right questions. The same thing applies here also. You may have a wonderful feature like this, but if you do not know the background or if you do not know what kind of data you're dealing with, then asking questions can become challenging, right? That is the point which I wanted to tell you. So whatever AI, NLP tools, or you can talk about prompt related tools which come, they all again rely on human to ask the right questions to give the right answer. So that is what I wanted to convey. So until you research and until you know something about the data you're dealing with, any of these tools will only give you a limited analysis. Because even the analysis which is given by AI or ChatGPT, you should validate it. ChatGPT is not right 100% of the time. Someone has to validate that response, whether it is correct or not. Blindly, we cannot go and rely, right? So from that perspective, if you ask me, it is very important that you should know how to use these tools. So a question which always comes, can AI replace humans? The right answer is humans who use AI will replace humans who are not using AI. That's the right answer if you ask me. So if I have to give you even better answer, go back to computers. When computers first came, people were telling that computers will replace humans. But today what happened? Humans who are using computers are replacing humans who are not using computers. So whoever have the IT knowledge, they have replaced all the manual jobs. So what is happening? Okay, manual jobs are gone, many of them, but they are also replaced by computer jobs, right? Software came, virtual world came. So at the end of the day, AI is also same. AI or data analysis, whatever tools you are learning, Power BI and everything, the same thing will happen. Those who are using these tools will replace those who are not using these tools. Because at the end of the day, all these tools also, they are relying on features like this, right? So that is about analyze data in Excel. So there are a lot of new features which Microsoft has introduced. So if you have used Excel 10 years back, or if you have learned Excel 10 years back, there is a lot more to learn, especially what Microsoft has introduced in the last 2 years, especially last 2 years, so many new things they have introduced. And this is one of the small examples which I'm giving you. Okay, now let's talk about from data analytics perspective. What is important to learn in Excel? Pivot tables is definitely something which you need to learn because pivot table will help you to summarize. Oh, okay, my voice is breaking. Just give me a moment, guys. Let me just reconnect. Okay. So from data, is my voice clear now or is it still breaking?
It's clear.
Okay. Okay. So from data analytics perspective, what do you need to learn in Excel? So the most important topic, if you ask me among everything, is there are two topics actually. One is charts, which I'll cover tomorrow. Another one is pivot table. These two are very important. The reason being, you should know how summarization happens. The simplest way to learn how summarization happens is pivot tables. To introduce you to the concept of rows, columns, x-axis, y-axis, in whichever language you want to speak. And the second topic is going to be charts. Charts is also important because you should know which chart to use in which situation. That is very important. If you do not know how to use charts, then if you do not know which chart to use in what situation, then it can become challenging, because a chart can give you an analysis very quickly compared to a table. So even if you walk into any business presentations, what people will do is they'll insert some charts to show the comparison or to show the composition. So there are different use cases that we'll talk about it in tomorrow's class. Okay, now coming back to the data analytics part. So how much importance you should give to Excel with respect to data analytics perspective? So we have various components in the course, and Excel and SQL are taking the first two components, right? Then we'll get into Power BI. So how serious should we with respect to Excel? Like I mentioned, generally nobody will test you on Excel skills, because Excel is something which people expect you to know by default. It is something which is taken for granted. So nobody will come and cross question you on your Excel skills. Probably they'll ask you few things like pivot or charts or maybe lookup functions. So lot of so you have lookup functions like VLOOKUP, XLOOKUP, that will cover in the fourth class, right? So more than that, nobody will ask you and nobody will expect you to know also. Then where does this all knowledge comes into play? It comes into play during the reverse engineering. So for example, a lot of times what happens is most of the reports which are there, they're already ready-made in Excel. And then what companies expect you is you have to convert those Excel reports, which are built by someone, some expert, into Power BI. So when something like that comes, you need to have reverse engineering skills. Even before you do reverse engineering, at least you should know what you're dealing with. So like I mentioned yesterday, the way Excel works is completely different from how SQL or DAX or anything works. I showed you the references which are given A1, A2, A3, A4. So from that references, we went to the column and table name references. So for someone who is a beginner, who is not aware of any of these concepts, it becomes very difficult to reverse engineer. For example, imagine someone does not know what is pivot table, and someone has built a report using pivot table, and that has to be done in Power BI. You will never be able to do reverse engineering. So at least if you know the basics, you will know what is the name of that particular concept. So for example, when you see something like this, a table with blue bars and some like white cells like this, at least you'll know, oh, this must be a pivot table. On the top also you have this pivot table analyze and everything. So with respect to Excel, you don't need to worry too much about it. Excel is only for building a good base for Power BI and SQL, you can say. But at the same time, don't neglect it. So many people neglect Excel, don't do that, right? That is what I wanted to say. Okay, now we have done a pivot table, and then this is called a pivot chart. So here you can change the filters. You can actually select the shipping mode. Let's say if you want limited ones, let's say you want to see everything except first class, you can always make those adjustments within the chart itself. So this is a chart which is like dynamic chart. So you can go ahead and you can add and apply filters and everything. The traditional Excel chart will not support that. A pivot chart is different. Pivot chart is different. Regular chart is different. In a regular chart, you can't add filters or you cannot remove filters. It has very limited functionality. But a pivot chart is something which will give you all these options. This is an advanced version of chart, if you ask me. So when I discuss about charts, you will come to know. And the last topic for today's session is data types. That is something which you have to know. There are mainly two types of data. The first type of data is called categorical data. The second type is numerical data. Now, what is categorical data? So, country, city, ship mode, name, class, then probably you can talk about type, shipping type. So all these things will come under categorical data. Categorical data means you're categorizing your data. So I'll say, hey, show me the sales of different countries or different cities. Show me sales of different shipping modes. Show me the sales of the company by salesperson name. So how much each salesperson has generated in terms of sales. Show me the sales as per different shipping classes or shipping types. So categorical means it will help you to categorize your data. So in other words, this will be something related to the different classification which you do, the names which you deal with. Now, when you talk about numerical data, as the name itself says, it talks about numbers. Numbers means what? Numbers means what? Profit, sales, cost, quantity, all these things will come under numbers, numerical values. So when I say numerical values, when I say numbers, it is not exactly numbers. You're talking about sales, cost, quantity, etc. Now here, I said it is numbers. Even though I said it is a number, still it can go wrong. Why? Because even though it says numerical, even though I'm saying sales, cost, and quantity, can I say this column contains numbers? The answer is yes and no. It's not a definite answer. The reason being, now imagine you have bank account number, for example, or let's say you have a PIN code, for example. So let us assume that there are bank account numbers like this. Generally, bank account numbers, you don't have any alphabets, right? Typically, you'll have only numbers like this. Like this, you have bank account numbers. Now, if you think about it, these are numbers only. Technically speaking, these are numbers. 000001, 2, 3, etc. But you can't perform any calculations on them. So, for example, I cannot say that, hey, if I add 3 bank account numbers like this, I'll get 6. You cannot do a calculation like that, right? It sounds funny. How can you add or subtract or divide bank account numbers? Bank account number is only an identification number. You're just using these numbers to identify someone or to identify someone's account. Now you don't do mathematical operations on this. You cannot say that, hey, look at the 3 bank account numbers. If I take average of these bank account numbers, this is something. You cannot do that, right? Honestly speaking. So this is only to classify or categorize. So in some situations, you'll still find numbers here. Just because those are numbers doesn't mean that you'll perform calculations. The difference between categorical and numerical is numerical data is something where you perform calculations. So for example, if I ask, hey, what is the average sales? Then you add all the sales line items and divide it by the count. If I ask you, hey, what is the maximum sales? Then you will see the maximum sales in that particular records which you have. But here it doesn't make sense. Can I say, hey, which is the maximum account number? Which is the minimum account number? So if I do something like this, people will think that person is mad, because why is he talking about bank account numbers and doing mathematical calculations on it? So technically speaking, you will find numbers in both places, whether it is categorical or numerical. But based on the situation, you have to think whether that is applicable or not. So this is a typical example, bank account number, right? So you don't do any calculations on this. If you do calculations, people will start questioning your sanity. So whether you have the right set of logical thinking or not. So that's why it is very important to understand the context. So some people, what they do is they blindly go with this assumption that if something is numbers, automatically it goes into numerical category. No, that is wrong. Something can be a number, but still it need not be numerical. Similarly, let's say this is one example. Now let me give you another example, rank. So rank 1, rank 2, rank 3. Let's say you wrote a competitive exam. So in competitive exam, you have ranks. Now ranks are also numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all these are numbers. But can you say that if I add the first 3 ranks, I'll get 6th rank? Or can I say the average of these ranks is 2? It does not make any sense. Of course, you can say which is the minimum rank and maximum rank, but you cannot perform calculations on the position of the rank. This is giving you the position. Even rank also will not come, may not come under numerical, because here, even though it is numbers, it is only for identification purpose you are using it. This is not meant for calculation purpose. So whenever you're dealing with data types like this, just because something is a number doesn't mean it's numerical. You have to think 4-5 times before you categorize a particular data type, right? That is very important thing to remember. Okay. So I'll take 5 more minutes and then I'll close. There are 4 data types: nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio, right? So tomorrow also I'll continue this topic for 10 minutes, and then today 5 minutes and 10 minutes, 15 minutes is enough. We can close it, and then I'll go to charts, and then I'll ask you some questions tomorrow. We'll have an interactive session. Now, what is nominal? Nominal means nouns, simply speaking. In English language, nouns means what? Anything related to a particular name, you will simply go with nominal. Like for example, this country, city, shipping mode, all these are different names which you have. Nouns. Ordinal means it is something which has an order. So for example, rank, size. So for example, when you go to a movie theater, you have the size, popcorn size, small, medium, large. So whenever you're dealing with something like that, where there is an order for the data, there should be an order. So rank, size, then you can go with more examples, but these are very simple ones. I want to keep it. So these are all names. This is rank or size. Then interval means it does not have a true zero. So this one I'll explain tomorrow. It takes a little bit of understanding for interval and ratio. So what do I mean by it does not have true zero? So IQ, temperature, all this come under interval. Ratio means something where you can perform calculations. Okay, so here you will find speed, height, distance, all these things will come under ratio. Now, what is the difference between both? This is a very big confusion which many people have. So what is an interval and what is a ratio? So if I have to give you this by taking this example, let's say you have temperature like this. Can you add the temperatures, or can you simply say that, okay, let's assume that in one place the temperature is 30 degrees, in another, or let's say one place the temperature is 15 degrees, and in another place the temperature is 30 degrees. Let's assume something like this. Now, can I say 30 degrees is double that of 15 degrees? Can I say 30 degrees temperature is twice as warm as 15 degrees temperature? Can I say something like this? The answer is absolutely no, because this is just a scale. We are talking about Celsius. So you have Fahrenheit, then you have Kelvin, you have a lot of other measurements. So Celsius is not just a standard, you can say. I mean, even though it's a standard, but there are other units. What is the SI unit of temperature? Guys, can anyone tell me what is the SI unit, standard unit of temperature?
Fahrenheit.
Hmm? It is Kelvin, right? So Kelvin is the standard if you have to take, not Celsius or not Fahrenheit. In US, people follow Fahrenheit. In India, we follow Celsius, but actual SI unit of temperature is Kelvin. So just by taking one particular scale, you cannot say that 30 is as twice warm as 15. That is absolutely wrong. But if you talk about speed, or you can talk about height or distance, for example, if I say one is 50 kilometers and another one is 100 kilometers, can I say 100 kilometers is twice as long as 50? The answer is yes. So that's why it is called ratio. You can take a ratio and that ratio makes a sense. But here, even though it says numbers only, ratios do not make any sense. For example, you cannot say that someone with 120 IQ is twice as intelligent as someone with 60 IQ. You cannot do that. Ratio does not work with temperatures or IQ or some of the data types. Even though they are numbers, you cannot take a ratio of them. And for example, if I say temperature equal to 0, it does not mean that there is temperature is absent. Temperature is still there, because when you say when you say temperature in Celsius is 0, still in Kelvin there will be some number associated with 0 degrees Celsius. So when I say temperature in Celsius is 0, it does not mean that there is no temperature at all. So it is not an absolute 0. But when I say distance equal to 0, that means I did not move. The car did not move, you can say. It is really a 0. But here, when I say IQ is 0 or temperature is 0, it does not actually mean that everything is 0. It is not that, it does not make absolute sense. So you cannot perform any ratios, and also it does not have the true 0. That is the difference between interval and ratio. We'll continue this in tomorrow's class. Okay, so this is very important concept to understand, because whenever you are dealing with data type, you should know how to deal with each data type in a unique way. So just because something is a number doesn't mean that you'll immediately jump on and do calculations. Okay, so that is about the data types. We'll continue this topic for 10 more minutes tomorrow, and then we'll jump into charts. So let me stop the record.